Over the weekend, the House of Representatives passed a $95 billion foreign aid package that includes aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. This legislation now heads to the Senate, where it is expected to pass this week. These spending bills exposed division among the House Republican Conference, particularly regarding additional spending for Ukraine, which received an additional $61 billion in this round of aid spending. Joining me now to discuss it is Congressman Glenn Grothman. He represents the 6th Congressional District in Wisconsin. Congressman Grothman, welcome to Washington Watch.
Well, glad to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. It was an eventful Saturday in the Capitol building. Tell us what happened from your perspective.
Well, we had 3 bills, which were all spending bills. The frustrating thing is, I think the thing of most concern that's happened in this country about the last 80 years is this overwhelming group of people coming across our southern border. It's something that we have to get the Biden administration to address. Only they can address it. And this was what I think, the final opportunity to force the Biden administration to come to the table and reduce the number of people streaming here. And the Republicans decided not to take advantage of the situation. Part of it could have been there were a given number of Republicans who just plain felt Ukraine was way more important than was going on the southern border, and they forced Speaker Johnson's hand. But either way, something has to be done. To remind your listeners, we have, depending on the month, between 220 and 350,000 people crossing our southern border, something we've never seen before. It's got to be addressed. It could have been addressed by holding up the Ukraine bill. It could have been addressed by holding up, I guess what I'll refer to as a budget or appropriation bill a few weeks ago. It has not been addressed. And now I think we're largely helpless until hopefully we get a new president sworn in January. And by that time, you're going to have another, 3 or 4 million people coming across the border.
Yeah. Well, there were separate aid packages discussed and debated on over the weekend. You voted in support of aid for Taiwan and Israel, but against further aid for Ukraine. Why do you see those situations differently?
Well, it was a smaller bill with regard to Southeast Asia. I did not like to vote yes for that, but I think China at all times is considering will we or won't we invade Taiwan. I think to vote no there, and some Republicans voted no, but to get a big no vote there is kind of sending the message to China that Taiwan is not as important. Taiwan is very important to this country, and the easiest way to make sure China does not invade Taiwan is to make sure the United States is ready. With regard to Israel, there was some money in there that I wouldn't like to have seen in there, but Israel has been a long ally of the United States in that part of the region. They're going to have a lot more fighting to do. We talk about what happened to Iran in the recent past, the huge number of missiles shot in there. But one thing a lot of Americans are not aware of is that there are, I believe, about 80,000 Israelis who can't go home every night because of rockets being shot in by Hezbollah out of Lebanon. Right. And obviously, Israel cannot permanently tell 70 or 80,000 of their citizens you can't go home at night. So that's something that has to be done. With regard to Ukraine, we do not want Ukraine to fall, but to me, we have 2 big problems there. First of all, the Biden administration, over 2 years into this thing, has not done anything to try to, from what I can see, to try to end this war. All wars end. Okay, the Korean War ended, and President Eisenhower even had to negotiate with the communist Chinese, maybe the greatest mass murdering dictatorship in history. But he still dealt with them. We have had peace, largely peace on the Korean Peninsula now for about 70 years. This idea of we are not going to try to wrap up the Ukrainian war is a big mistake. It's a big mistake for the United States. What we're doing is, as it drags on, as we try not to get a peace, it drives Russia, China, and Iran together. I don't think we want, this group of nations to be all that much stronger. To drag on this war, I think unquestionably makes Iran's military more powerful, probably makes China more powerful, things we don't like to see. Yeah. So I voted no on that. because, like I said, there's no effort to wrap things up, and it's the final chance until the new president is sworn in to try to force President Biden to drop that number, 250,000 people coming across the southern border. By the way, I just got to talking to somebody who has relatives down in the Tucson area. Their house has been broken in down there, and they believe it's by illegal immigrants. They're facing criminal problems they never had until now. But if you're going to keep taking that many people across the border, you're going to continue to have that problem.
We're speaking with Congressman Glenn Grothman from Wisconsin. And Congressman, you mentioned there the connection that has been made, at least politically, between our own border security and the Ukrainian border security, if we can put it that way. And you wished to see that issue leveraged, the support of Ukraine and the desire to support Ukraine, to also secure the southern border. So is this more an opportunity, and maybe you can speak for yourself and other Republican colleagues who share your position and voted against the aid package, is the primary concern that we should wait and make sure we do both, or is there concern about the aid to Ukraine just on the merits?
Both. Like I said, on the merits, one more time, we're giving the Biden administration more money without him looking for a peace. I'd like to remind your listeners that Ukraine has the second lowest birth rate in the world, below only South Korea, and Russia also has a huge shortage of young people. I mean, if there are two countries who should not want to lose any more young people in a war, it's Russia and Ukraine. So that's the first problem. The second problem is it's the final chance, and quite frankly, a chance we were assured we would take, as Republican leadership assured they would do it. It's our final chance to force the Biden administration into doing something at the border. I think the Biden administration may have done something. There was a rather weak proposal put out by Senator Langford of Oklahoma, but the Biden administration sometimes touts that. So it's an indication the Biden administration would do something. Yeah. I think the fact that we got nothing here was just a huge wasted opportunity. And I think, quite frankly, more questions ought to be asked across the board among Republican leadership. Why didn't you start with a Langford package and go from there? Why are we just agreeing, in essence, to be helpless for the next 8 months until a new president is sworn in, 9 months?
Well, I think there is plenty of evidence that the Biden administration is sensitive to the immigration and border security issue as they head into November, because voters are very concerned about it. Therefore, they must be concerned about it, and they want to at least pretend to be caring. But I'd also like to get your comments on the politics of how this vote might affect what's going on in the Republican caucus. We know there is a one-vote Republican majority right now in the House, as narrow as it could be. There is a motion to vacate that has been introduced in the House with respect to Speaker Johnson. Do you see this vote impacting that at all? No. Any chance that moves forward?
No. We have three Republicans who stepped forward and said they want to get rid of Speaker Johnson. I believe the Democrat Party will provide some votes to keep him here. The idea of trying to train a new person with elections only 7 months away is on the face of it foolish. You know, you just can't pick a random congressman and say, we're going to make him speaker. It takes a long time to prepare for that. I have watched Mike Johnson learn more and become a better speaker over the 6 or 7 months that he's been in there. I have no desire to begin to train a new person. A lot of the people who run for that job have even less experience than Mike. My personal opinion is to be speaker, you ought to have at least 15 or 16 years experience. Mike does not have that amount, but he does have 7 or 8 years experience now. So the idea that we try to train another person 8 or 9 months before election is just madness.
Well, that has to be one of the hardest jobs in the world at this point, running
no question.
The House of Representatives.
Yeah, Mike is learning. I mean, he's getting better all the time. Like I said, I wish he would have leveraged one of these bills to get something going at the border, but this was his position, and obviously a majority of Republicans, a clear majority, not me, but a clear majority of Republicans felt that they could go ahead and vote for a lot more money for Ukraine before getting any guarantees at the border.
Congressman Grothman, a related but slightly different subject. Over the weekend, there were a lot of protests that were genuinely pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish over the weekend on college campuses. We know that the conflict in Israel is becoming a conflict in the U.S. in many ways, so far not that violent at least. What's your reaction to what's happening on college campuses?
I think it's coming from three areas. One is just because it's on a college campus doesn't mean it's a college student. I was told that my own alma mater, University of Wisconsin, apparently some of the demonstrators there are just kind of old left-wing hangers-on who aren't connected with the university. But I think otherwise they're from two areas. I think as we see more immigration from that part of the world, we're going to find that we have new migrants who are not sympathetic to Israel, are much more sympathetic to the Arab part of the world there. That's something that's going to happen if we have open borders or just continue to allow unlimited immigration in this country. The second problem is, I think all successful westernized nations face a problem in that I'll call them the spoiled children of the upper middle class like to demonstrate against America or demonstrate against the West. And of course, what's going on in Israel, you have
Congressman, we got about 10 seconds. Keep going.
Okay. You have the spoiled kids in the upper middle class who don't like the West. And when it's in Israel, that means they don't like Israel, which is a shame, but that's what's going on.
Congressman Grothman, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.